All right. All right. So for today, I'm going to go over the next step of the project. So I'm going to need you guys to put your phones away, earbuds out, so everything's with me today. That I'm not going to have to repeat myself tomorrow. Um, so we have for week 3. Tomorrow you'll have the grade submission, which will include the quiz from last week, and then the worksheet from over the weekend, part 1, I should say. The quiz I'll have, it's not going to be big. It's going to be over content from today. Anything from the worksheets for part 1, you'll see some questions there, some basic ones, nothing super, super difficult. It's probably going to be like, if I have a stock for $5 and it goes up to $10, how much have I made? If I, so something along those lines. Part 2 or challenge 2. You guys heard of this last week. Um, and I don't want that. I want that. Okay, fine. It's staying. All right. So there we go. All right. So this part right here, again, I'll show you that you're going to see this on all the worksheets. So the one you get tomorrow will have an updated question. So the current unemployment rate for U.S. should stay the same, at least this for this month, and same thing with Ohio. So whatever you had from last week will be the same thing for this week. The Dow Jones and the S&P and the Nasdaq will be new, so those will be different numbers. So look for those. And all I need on there, guys, is well, I'll show you guys in a second, but the up, how much has gone up, how much has gone down, just the pluses or the minuses. And then you're looking for 20 companies, super, super basic. Don't overdo it with this one. Just kind of get yourself a pool of things to play with. And then the symbol, and then keep in mind the symbols are the letters. It's not going to be like the logo. And then you're going to find 10 of those and give me a small explanation. It could be a sentence, could be a couple of words. Doesn't have to be anything extravagant. If you want to, you're more than welcome to. So that's the one that's due tomorrow. The one that we will be starting on tomorrow will be due next week. Is going to look like this. So again, there's that same beginning right there. And keep in mind too, just FYI, I'm just going to start to grade these for this is 4 points every single time you get this. So super, super basic. You guys know how to do that. Now for this, and I'll show you guys on the website. Uh, this has all the information. So when you go into the quotes, and again, in a moment there, I'll show you guys on the website. Sorry for repeating myself. You'll see it here. It says labels 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's going to coincide with 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right. So you're gonna, of those 20 companies that you guys have, you could pick the 10 that you already gave me a little blurb about. You're gonna give me the company name again, the symbol, and then you're gonna look for the last price. So as of yesterday, what was the last price and whatever that stock was. And then it's also going to tell you what the high price from yesterday was and what the low price from yesterday was. And I'll show you guys that in a second. And then shares out. The reason I did this one, I had something else years ago, but I kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of how many shares some companies are selling. So like Apple has it's like 1.5 billion shares are available. It's like crazy to think that that's how many shares you can buy in the company. So there's that. And the next one, this is extremely generic. It does not have to be specific. If you wanted to get really detailed with these graphs, you can. You do not have to. The biggest thing that you're going to do is when you go to the website and you see the initial graph that's going to be right in front of your face, it's going to be the 1 month. It's almost always the month one. All you're going to do is click on 1 year because it gives you a better perspective of how the company's doing. And then all you're going to do is draw that in. So it would look something along the lines of, let's say that it was Snap. Okay, I don't need, like I said, the numbers. So if Snap looks like this, right? If that's what it looks like, then that would be the generic. It's all I need. Nothing beyond that. And then over here, let's say it was, you chose to do Ford, right? It could be something like that. That's, again, nothing beyond that. Okay. Just so that you guys have an idea. Because there are times when you look at the stocks at 1 month, like Twitter, right here looks horrible, right? But But if you look at the big picture, it's not that bad compared to April of the year prior. So again, the full year. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, again, just to show you guys that website that we're using, how the market works. Sorry. Okay. So if you get to here, you don't have to log in for this one. If you want to, you're more than welcome, because you just click on trading ideas. Or if you have the symbols, you can type in your symbols up there. Okay. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I have Coca-Cola as one of my companies. If I click on the quote, it gives me all the information, and there's the graph I'm talking about. Okay. In regards to, there's my last price. So that was the last price when the stock market closed yesterday for Coca-Cola. The high price from yesterday was $61.18, and the lowest it got yesterday was 60.55, 56 cents. Now this is where the shares that are out, there's 4.32 billion shares of stock in Coca-Cola today. That's just an amazing number to me to think about that. Okay, and then what you'll do is click on the 1 year right here, and there's your, right. So again, 1 month looks good, 1 year just a different perspective. So on your worksheet, I would see a graph that looks kind of, just a generic graph like that on your worksheet. Okay, super basic, nothing beyond that. If you are by some chance really getting into this and you want to research a little more, one of the things that they have on here is news stories. So if you want to look into some more information about Coca-Cola, they really do a decent job. So if you're into it, you want to look into it. Because I have had people that are really investing based off of some of the things they're doing here. So there's some information down there. Okay. And then again, remember, when you guys are in here, oops. I'm not sure if it's going to be under here. Right. If you can't get to the stock market stuff because you don't want to log in, if you click on Google Finance or Yahoo Finance, there's your Dow Jones, S&P, NASDAQ. And again, all I'm looking for is the down 0.96, down 0.97, down 1.15%, because the percents make it a little bit easier to understand. All right. So that's that for tomorrow. That's really it. And again, you'll have the full week to get that one done. Again, if you get it done tomorrow, awesome. You're more than welcome to turn it in. Okay. Okay, if you have your notes, so actually let me ask this. Are there questions or concerns you guys have you can think of right now? All right, so let's go ahead and get your note packets out. And we are going to get through a couple things today. Nothing major. Like I said, it's going to be a couple of slides, 2 or 3. There's a couple decent discussion points in here. So we had made it through some of the basics. We're going to get into a concept that is kind of goes back to the scarcity again. Everything revolves around scarcity. Yes? Sure. All right. So everything we do, everything is a trade. You're welcome. It's a trade-off, right? So it could be as simple as wearing one pair of shoes compared to the other pair of shoes. I'm going to wear this sweatshirt versus this sweatshirt. I'm going to hit the snooze button, or I'm going to get up right away. I'm going to go work out today, and I'm going to go work out later on. I'm going to get this on the way to school, or no, I'm just going to get to school. Again, decision, turning right, turning left. I'm going to go this way to school. No, I'm going to go this way to school. I pick up my friend. Now they can get a ride from somebody else. everything is constantly a trade-off, right? So a trade-off is essentially a decision, right? I'm going to make a decision. That's really it. So going to lunch today. Did anybody bring their lunch today? Okay, so that was a trade-off. As simple as it was, now I'll see what I can come up with at lunch. Right? If I got $5, I'll get myself some. Or I got $1, I'll get a can of pop or a bottle of water. Right? So your brain kind of goes, or I'll wait till after school. That was a trade-off. But every time you make a trade-off, you're losing out on something, right? So we are constantly making decisions. Sometimes they're like silly ones that, uh, well, here's one. Because I have that restaurant menus. I'll show you guys in a second. Has anybody ever gone to a restaurant and you have like all these choices in front of you, and inevitably you narrow it down to 2 or 3, and then the waiter or waitress shows up, and you're like, chicken fingers. Can't make up my mind. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'll just default to chicken fingers or chicken nuggets or mac and cheese, right? There's always that default menu item that we tend to fall back on because we know it's safe, right? There was a place I went to in Maryland. My niece was in that moment. She was like, I should get vegetables because she wanted to be healthy. And she's like, I'll get the corn. And they brought it out and it had all sorts of like seasonings and weird stuff. And she took a bite and she's like, oh, this is the worst corn ever. So now it's a running joke because she defaulted to a really, really bad thing that she thought was going to be a safe bet, right? Or here's one too. Has anybody ever taken lead when you're out with friends? Like the waiter waitress shows up. Let's like the pizza places used to be like the big one. I'm not sure if it's happened for you guys recently because of COVID and restrictions, but or if you're ordering a pizza and you're like, anyone, and no one's telling you anything, you finally like, okay, fine, and you just make up, you just do it for them. You have that trade-off, right? That I'm just going to make the decision for us, and you're all going to have to just suck it up and follow along, right? So when I think about this, there is a restaurant that exists that's probably one of the more difficult ones to decide. Again, there's a default one for me every time I go here, but it's one of those things where I get to this place and I'm thinking, has anybody ever had so many choices that you just give up? Like, there's actually a psychological thing. I had to talk to Mr. Watkins and Mrs. Toddy about it. Buffets. When you go to buffets, there's a psychological issue where you get to the point where you have so many choices that you don't make choices. Like you don't try new stuff. You end up defaulting. It's like. But this place has that kind of feel for me. And inevitably, of course, you have to pick one. Has anybody been to the Cheesecake Factory? Who here has not been to the Cheesecake Factory? Okay, you have not. When you get there, it'll be an experience. It's one when I show you guys how much is available. It's almost like mind-numbing, right? So you have your first page, and then you have another page of appetizers and more appetizers, and then appetizer salads, and then pizzas, right? So then we get to specialties, and then lunch specials, and then you have your glam burgers, which is a full page, and then you have more specialties, and it's like you name the version. You could get Americana, you could get Mexican, you could get Chinese, it's crazy. And then pastas, fish and seafood, combinations, which might be a way to get around some of the individuals' decisions. Steaks and chops, side dishes, salads, and I have to laugh that the salads are further down the road, right? So don't put them up front. You have the appetizer salads, but these are put them behind. Location, and sandwiches normal, and then we have our cheesecakes, which is the name of course, the name. But that's our special desserts, ice cream delights, ice frozen drinks, milkshakes, hot drinks, espresso, and then there's all your drinks down there at the bottom. And then for those who think it's a little bit too much, we have your Skinnylicious menu. So we now have the same basic things, but a little bit more on the healthier side. Fresh baked flatbread, salads, specialties. Like we're looking at 18 actual pages of choices, right, which is amazing, right? But in the end, we have to narrow it down. Unless you're my dad, and then you buy 3 or 4 meals and bring them to the table as appetizers. My dad's an appetizer. If you can time it right with my dad, you can get food at the table before you get there. So if you know I get there first, you wait about 10, 15 minutes and then show up. When you show up, the food will be there waiting for you. Um, there's an Italian place we've gone to down in Little Italy. Anybody been to Murray Hill, Little Italy downtown, Cleveland? He likes this ravioli that he likes, so he'll just get 2 orders of it as a meal and bring it as an appetizer. And we just, yeah. But again, there's a trade-off. There's an opportunity cost. I can't decide. I'm just going to buy it. And that situation, though, my dad is now spending a lot more money. So there's your opportunity cost, right? Because every decision you make, there's different versions of them, right? So you have your individual, it's going to benefit me or hurt me. There are business decisions. What's the best use of my resources as an owner of a business? And then that guns or butter one, that was a very, very generic explanation of, do I go for more government spending or do I and help the government, or do I put more money towards the people? Right? Do I give them a tax break or do I increase their taxes? And we can look at this from physical things too. Do I mandate the mask? Do I not mandate the mask? Do I mandate the vaccine? Do I not? And depending on where you live, it's different, right? In the end, though, everything is limited, right? So we have to make decisions all the time. So those are our trade-offs. Constantly deciding what I want, what I don't want. But every time you make a decision, you lose out on something, right? So if I chose these shoes over those shoes, well, then I lose out on wearing those other shoes. I wore this sweatshirt and I like it, but it's kind of like scratch here on the neck, but it looks good. Right? So the trade-off was, looks good, but now I got to deal with the scratchy thing all day long. Right? Or I love these boots; they're really comfortable, but they're not really great in if it starts to like get wet outside. Like it's gonna like Uggs. Are Uggs okay for when they're wet? I'd imagine they're not as much because they get soaked, right? But they're comfortable. So again, trade-off opportunity cost. You can look at, do I get gas now or do I get gas after school? It's all up to you. The other thing too, with individual decisions, this is the one, stages of life, it changes. Who in here has a food that they like now that they hated when they were little? Yeah. What was yours?
Mine was green olives.
So now you like them? I tried. Ugh. There's something about the texture of olives. Anybody else like olives? You're an olive fan. What's yours?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one that you were going to talk about, like that you didn't like, now you do like, or you did like, now you don't like?
When I was little, I used to like tomatoes. I can't stand them now.
Texture, same for me.
The texture kills me.
Yeah. I always laugh too because everyone's like, well, I mean, you can have ketchup. I was like, yeah, different. It's not the same texture. Yeah. But then I'll have salsa. I can do salsa.
I can do tomatoes if they're like in things,
Yeah.
but not like straight up tomatoes.
It's weird. Anyone else have a texture thing? Like you eat something.
I can't eat mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes? Really?
That's like my favorite.
Wow. Now can you eat like a potato, baked potato? But not mashed potatoes. Yeah. Is there something that happened that you like?
I don't
just
know.
don't like the texture.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's interesting. I used to hate egg rolls. I thought they were the most disgusting things in the world. Now, if you have egg rolls out and you're not touching them, I will eat your egg roll. You're not gonna have that. Hot mustard, a little spicy mustard on there. I had no idea, but I remember when I was little, we would go to Chinese and I'd be like, "Oh, Chinese! I hate Chinese." And they would have to give me noodles. That was all I would eat. Now I just anything Chinese or Japanese. Actually, sushi. I used to think the most disgusting thing in the world. And my brother and my dad would always get it at places, and I was like, "Oh, so gross." And then I went on a date with someone, and I couldn't look like a wimp, so I had sushi with her because she ordered it, and I was like, "It's not that bad." And all of a sudden, I was like trying sushi everywhere. So now, if we go out to dinner or we go to a Japanese place where they have sushi, I'm the one that orders, and I get all the weird stuff. And everyone's like, and then some normal stuff for everyone else. But yeah, things change over time. So one of the things that happens, of course, is that cost, that loss. So what am I losing out on? So here's one for you guys. It was just a real story that happened to me about 3 or 4 months ago. No, when was it? So I am not married. I am dating someone, and it was the moment of truth where my parents and her parents needed to meet. And so we went to a really nice Italian restaurant. You guys know where Summit Mall is? You guys been to Summit Mall? Right there on the way, it's on Ghent Road. There's an Italian place, and I can't think of the name of it now. I think it's Valerio's. Anyways, great Italian restaurant, and we were meeting there because her parents live in Canton, my parents live in Bruxville, so it was a okay middle point. And I told my dad, I'm buying. This is on me. Now my dad is typically the one who always takes the check, and then my girlfriend's dad is always the one who takes the check. So I had told my dad, and I told my mom, I'm buying. Don't try to buy. No, I got it. So the trade-off for me was, you guys get what you want. I'm going to pay. Right. So we're just going to enjoy the evening. So I get there, and we were a little bit late, and my parents had met her parents already, and they were already talking and having a great time, which was good. That was a good sign for me. And then when we sat down, they had already gotten a bottle of wine. I was like, awesome, perfect. They got a bottle of wine, they're drinking the wine. And then I got another bottle of wine because they did red and we got a white and blah, blah, blah. So eat dinner. It's a relatively more expensive restaurant. So in my head, I'm thinking, it's going to be about this much money. I can do it. So, and then I knew that my girlfriend's dad was going to try to take the check. So I found the waitress before she got to the table, and I was like, I'll take the check. Just give it to me right now. I'll take it. So I got it. And by the way, the parents had gotten another bottle of red wine, and I was like, okay, great, that's fine. Now my experience with wines had been like $30 bottles was like the max I've ever gone. No. The bottle of wine I bought was $30. The bottle of wine they bought twice was $115. So I got to check it. I was like, because it ended up being $500 something for meals plus the wine and tip, which is 10%. So you're looking, and I went 20 because she was a really good waitress. So it ended up being around $600 and something. But it was a trade-off, right? I'm buying. Don't try to pay for it. Opportunity cost in that sense was physicality of losing $600 and something change. However, was it worth it? Yes, it was very, very well worth it to have a good time, right? So we have these things, right? The trade-off was the decision I was going to take it. Now, the next best thing would have been that my girlfriend's dad would have taken the check and he would have paid for it, but then I would have felt bad because I wanted to pay for it. Wouldn't have been a bad thing. So there's a quick example of opportunity cost, right? I have this, I made a decision, I lost out on this. The next best thing would have been sitting there and letting them pay for it, but of course there's an opportunity cost for that. So everything has a trade-off. For you guys, and we talk about this with scarcity, going to work or going to school, there's a trade-off and opportunity cost, right? It's a very, very simple one right up front. If I go right to work, I'm making money, but I'm losing out on that education that potentially could get me more money later on in a higher paying job, right? Or I could go to school, but there's my trade-off. I'm losing out on the money that I could be making working right away, right? Then you start to find little differences in there. Well, I could go to school for an associate's degree or find a job that's going to pay me to go back to school. So there's all sorts of different trade-offs that we're going to make with those opportunity costs that come along with it. Now this next one, this is something that we do all the time, and I'm going to stop with this. I know we got plenty of time left over, but I'm going to stop with this because this is going to be, I'll get to that doctor's office, a little thing over there, and we'll stop. The idea here is that we are always looking at something beyond, right? So if I look at that dinner with the family, with the parents, thinking at the margin, I was not necessarily thinking about the finances that night. I was thinking about the enjoyment of having them meet and the fact that
I was, this is kind of silly, financially stable enough to be able to afford a dinner for them, right? There's more to it than just the dinner. Right? I'm thinking at the margin. I'm thinking about the next thing that comes along with this, right? Um, Now, if it was, and you guys may have had a situation where you're in a relationship with someone and there's that moment where they want you to meet family and you're like, I don't know if we're there yet, right? So in that sense, we're looking at the marginal cost and the marginal benefit. Is it worth it right now? Is the benefit of meeting them going to outweigh the cost of, I don't know if this relationship's going to last that much longer, right? That's kind of more an ethereal thing. But has anybody ever, and it could be one of you guys, known someone who's on a diet, a very, very strict diet, and they're only eating either proteins or they're only eating, they're doing like the liquid diet or they're doing shakes, something like that. And then there's this, so in their brain, the benefit, right? The benefit of drinking this and losing that weight outweighs the cost of not enjoying the food that everyone else is eating. Right? If you guys have ever been at a big, huge, fancy family feast and everyone's eating, and that person on the diet is not eating, right? They're doing the marginal benefit, the marginal cost. Benefit of losing the weight outweighs the cost of not having the flavor and all the fun stuff there. When you guys are going grocery shopping, same thing, right? You're driving, you're walking to the cart, you're doing things, you're pulling, and then at one point you're like, I don't know. Walmart or Target's a great place to think about this one. Anybody ever been walking through and they put stuff in the cart, and then at one point you're like, no, and you put it back on the shelf? Who in here knows this is just more of a, I'm just going to see if you're a good person or a bad person. Who in here has ever randomly put the stuff back in the middle of nowhere and not back where you got it?
For sure.
Yeah.
I definitely.
I'll admit that I do. Every once in a while, I'll go all the way back to where I got. Part of my brain is, well, they're getting paid to do this. But anyways, that whole process of walking through and you got the stuff in the cart and you're like, I'm gonna get this, and then about halfway through you're like, do I need it though? Nah. Okay. That's when you're doing marginal cost, marginal benefit. Has anybody ever done the? Who in here? Does anybody have a milkshake fan in here? Like, you like milkshakes? Okay. Would a $4 milkshake, let's say a $5 milkshake, be worth it to you if you're a milkshake fan? Okay, let me give you context. $5 McDonald's milkshake. Right? How about a $5 Steak and Shake milkshake? Right? So sometimes it's how it's being made. Like for me, how much would you guys spend on a McDonald's milkshake? Max. $2? Anybody? $3? Okay. $3 is about where I push it to. Right? If I was Dairy Queen, I might go $4. Right? Maybe. But if I'm on Steak and Shake, or has anybody been at Yours Truly over here in Medina? They do really good. They do the milkshake, but then they also, I think Steak and Shake does the same thing. They give you the metal cup that's left over. So you actually have the milkshake and all leftover. So again, you're thinking in the margin. Is it worth it? Do I go on? Do I buy it? Do I not? Is the meal good enough? All right. So for this one, there's nothing for you guys to write down for this one. But this is this is kind of from the production perspective. If I'm the owner of something. So let's say that I am the owner of, I'm the doctor. I have a family practice, and on average, and I'm not saying this is 100%, on average in Ohio, I did look this up a while back, a family doctor, in a year can pull in around $175,000 for a family practice, which is good. It's nice. And as a doctor, you would expect that they would be getting paid more. All the schooling and all the education and the knowledge that they're supposed to have. I'm okay with them making that much money. Now, if it's just a doctor, who in here has been to a doctor's office in the past year or two? Okay. Anybody spend more, and I'm talking about a family doctor, not the ER, not like the hospital. Anyone spend over an hour in the waiting room? Okay. How about over 30 minutes in the waiting room? Okay. How about over 15 minutes in the waiting room? Okay. All right. Now, that was the doctor plus the nurses plus the whoever was working at the front desk, right? So that's not a good situation for the hour. That's beyond what it should have been. Now, if it was just the doctor, though, only the doctor had to do all of the processing, get your information, get your medical information, take all the stats, and then evaluate you. How long do you think it would eventually take in that situation? Yeah, I'd look in 2 to 3 hours. Because think about all the patients that the doctor would have to see as well. Right? So let's say that the doctor, to make the doctor's life easier, is going to hire a nurse, and we're going to pay that nurse $60,000. Right? It's a nice, decent, it's a pretty good salary. But what does that do to the doctor's income? Brings it down to $115,000. Right? Yeah, good. But I can now see more patients, right? So let's say that I bring in $80,000 in new income. Now, was it worth it hiring that nurse? Heck yeah. That would be marginal cost. The benefit outweighs the cost. So physically, cost $60,000, benefit $80,000. I'm $20,000 in. I'm good, right? Let's say I have $195,000, and I'm still running all of and I have the nurse helping me out with this, but I'm doing all the office stuff as well. So I find myself an office manager, and I'm going to pay them $40,000 to do all the paperwork for me. And so that brings me down to $155,000. But I bring in $70,000 in more income because I can do things faster, right? Good move. Yeah. So I pulled in $30,000 extra from. So again, marginal cost, marginal benefit. So if you talk about anyone doing their business, they're going to play that game with hiring employees. Does anybody ever know anyone who's gotten fired? It doesn't have to be you, from their job. Okay. I would imagine, as an owner of a business, I probably went, I'm paying you to do what? To not do the job I hired you for? It's not, the benefit is not outweighing the cost anymore. So I'm paying you $15 an hour, and you're on your cell phone the entire time, or you didn't do what I asked you to do. Thank you very much. I'm not going to pay you to not do the work to see you. So again, you can look at those things from marginal cost, marginal benefit perspective. Okay. All right, so tomorrow, quiz will be over marginal cost. Thinking on the margin, opportunity cost, and trade-off. Okay. You will see a couple questions from that worksheet from last week. Stock market, a couple questions from that one, and then that should be it. So I'm looking at, in my brain, I'm thinking 10 questions, probably 10 to 12 max. Good. If you have any questions about anything else, please come on up, and I will help you out. Other than that, we got about a decent amount of time left over. So you are more than